I'm beginning to think that choice of ink, wet versus normal versus dry, is more significant than the choice of nib, fine, medium, etc. For your writing experience, RE, the final outcome, how your writing feels as you do it and how it ultimately looks on paper. Any thoughts? Okay, so to summarize that, does it matter more to have a wet or dry flowing ink, or does it matter more to have different nib sizes? The answer is both, because it really depends. So there's what I like to call the trifecta, which there's 3 different parts. It's like a triangle. There's the pen, the ink, and the paper. And the pen, yes, it deals with the flow of the feed and stuff like that. The nib is really the main factor there. So it's really your nib size, your ink choice, and then your paper. I actually think that the paper makes the biggest impact. And I know that's not like a commonly talked about thing. Most people, when they get into fountain pens, they don't even give the paper a thought. They start using the fountain pen, and it uses a very liquid, watery ink, and they're using it on just normal copy paper or whatever, legal pads or whatever that they're used to with the gel and the ballpoint pens, but it just feathers and bleeds and looks really kind of terrible. Part of that is because, at least in the US here, we generally don't have very high quality paper for fountain pens. It's definitely different in other countries, but you know, it's your mileage may vary on that depending on where you are and what your culture is and how important quality paper is where you are. But in general, most people getting into fountain pens don't take into account the paper quality. So that could actually be the single biggest thing that could impact your writing, is the paper. Because if you have really absorbent paper, I mean, it can spread out 2 or 3 times the normal line width versus using a paper that has a good coating on it that doesn't really absorb the ink and stuff like that. So that actually, I think, is the biggest factor. So I'm not even really addressing your question head on. I'm talking about something completely different. So paper is definitely a thing. And then specifically with your question, whether ink or nib size is a bigger factor, I think it's going to depend. Definitely if you're talking about the full range of nib sizes, like going from like an extra fine to a 6mm italic on the Pilot Parallel, obviously that's going to make a huge difference. So I think that the nib choice makes a bigger impact than the type of ink that you're using. Not to say the ink isn't a factor, because it definitely is, and how wet flowing it is and all that can certainly be used to impact your line width. But I would have to say that the choice of nib has more of an impact than the flow of the ink. But really, it all kind of comes together to impact each other. That's part of both the blessing and the curse about this wonderful hobby that we're in, is that there are so many variables that you can really fine-tune your specific personal experience that you like. That's the good side of it. The bad side of it is it can take you a while to kind of figure that out. So for me, the journey is the reward. Discovering all these different factors that come into play and seeing how different inks react in different pens with different paper and all these kind of things, to me is kind of fun to discover that. And then once you kind of find like your perfect combination, you can just kind of stick with it, and you can explore other pens, ink, paper combinations as well, and your taste may change over time too. When I first got into fountain pens, I wanted nothing to do with fine nibs. I wanted all broads and stubs and things like that, because I wanted to put a lot of ink down, have it look really beautiful. Since in the last couple of years especially, I've really grown to appreciate finer nibs. Being able to write on dot grid, notebooks and things like that, wanting an extra fine nib to be able to do so. So I can really appreciate both. So your taste may change over time, but it's the discovery that really makes it enjoyable.